Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Apologies for my absence over the last couple of months. Do I have any other excuse than being busy in other aspects of my life and just tardy with this aspect of my life? Not really. So moving swiftly on, today we are reviewing Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, meant to be the final installment in the DCEU as we know it, and ultimately the final nail in the coffin on the Snyderverse and everything that came before. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, whether deliberately chosen by James Wan and the writers or imposed on by Warner Bros. And DC, it chooses to stand on its own 2 feet and be a standalone film with no kind of references to the outside world and the greater universe that it takes place within. So it refuses to talk about the elephant in the room and just opts to do its own thing, which I think would have been a smart move if this film had a solid script to build those foundations on, but it doesn't. Now, don't get me wrong, this film was nowhere near the train wreck I was expecting it to be based on the reviews that I had seen and watched, but it is still far from calling it a good film. You know, we've been really plagued this year with a lot of awful superhero films, the exceptions being Across the Spider-Verse, and for the most part, Guardians 3. I think The Flash was better made, but crumbled under the weight of the multiverse storyline. I think Aquaman is just more fun as a film, despite probably being weaker in storytelling and script. And Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is the type of subpar film that I hate the most. It's the type of film where you can see the fuse has been lit, you can see the potential, the ingredients are there, and it just never amounts to the sum of its parts. I think this film had the tone right, it had that continuation of that fun, vibrant, colourful world building of the first film, that kind of comedic playfulness of the first film, which really worked and had a fantastic counterpoint when it kind of fixated on the relationship between Orm and Arthur. I think they had a good dynamic. It was probably the thing that redeemed the film slightly. But the actual dialogue and the script writing just gives these actors and characters nothing to work with. No real kind of depth of relationships or, you know, interesting themes to explore. It's all just very ham-fisted and kind of insubstantial. And you know it's bad when even the scientist characters are being given lines like, "Don't trust the trident." A lot of the film is also kind of narrated in these very overly expositional voiceovers that seem to be compensating for the fact that this film is chopped up and edited together really kind of quickly and roughly. The film definitely needed another 15-20 minutes to let it breathe, to let certain moments actually sink in, to let certain moments have their kind of evolution and catharsis. But you can tell there is some corporate involvement in the way that this film is hacked up, particularly as it goes along. A film should not have as many cut to black moments as this film has, where you then fade back in and pick up somewhere else. This film has a lot of those, which suggests that the natural flow of the film has been interrupted and disrupted by people in suits. I don't want to get into the political drama of Amber Heard being in this film, how much she should have been, how much she shouldn't have been. Just take the film on its own merit. Mira is an important part of Arthur's story. She was in it probably as much as she needed to be. Doesn't make or break the film by any means. And ultimately, I think the reason this film is failing is because we know it's leading nowhere. So it just has a stateless release. One of the biggest, and probably the biggest positive of this film is Jason Momoa. He's got such a likeable charisma. He's a real kind of physical presence on screen, and you can tell he's just having such fun with the film. The first 5 minutes really kind of set a fun tone, really showed that it was having a bit of playfulness and a bit of fun with the editing, with the character, and it just really made you feel like this could work. And then it doesn't. But Jason Momoa really kind of brings his character to life, and I think he is such a badass, for lack of a better word, and it is just so fun to watch him in the action sequences, which were another real kind of strength of the film. I think there's a couple of set pieces like Black Manta's initial invasion of Atlantis that could have been dragged out a bit longer to really make that a bit more dramatic. There was a kind of fantastic one-take trident fight at the end of this film that was really, really well choreographed. And a couple of moments like that, it really is well staged and well choreographed, well filmed. Just wish the kind of individual action sequences maybe could have been extended a bit longer. And I briefly mentioned earlier that the relationship between Arthur and Orm is also a real strength of this film. Patrick Wilson and Jason Momoa have a kind of likeable chemistry, even if the script fails them a lot of the time. And Orm's character is probably the only one with a real arc in this film. So the kind of compelling elements of the film all hinge on him and his journey back to kind of doing the noble thing, doing his duty. Duty not just as an Atlantean, but as part of this family, basically. The villains were just redundant in this film. Rather than give Black Manta's revenge quest a compelling and deeper look into this film just opts to have him get possessed by this evil demon spirit. Basically then he's just a conduit through which this evil person operates. So Black Manta is just reduced to a punch bag with abs, basically. All of this builds to a finale which, shocking final shot green screen aside, feels like Jason Momoa is having a very literal and figurative mic drop moment for this character, which I think he's earned. You can't help but smile at the ending of this film, I don't think, because you know it's Jason Momoa saying it to the fans. It's almost defiant, the final shot of this film. While it works in the context of the narrative, I think it works even more in the context of the behind the scenes turbulent last few months that's been happening with DC. And the final scene is a real statement of ownership and passion for the character that just has bled across his performance in the 3 films that he's been in. And is probably a very fitting finale for his version of the character, even if the film itself does not live up to that. The music is still really good. The visuals, with the odd exception aside, still hold up. And the action sequences are still really fun. It is really just the script and the story, and then the way that the story has been edited together into a final marketable product that lets this film down. It is not quite the crime against cinema that a lot of the reviews are making it out to be. I'd say it's about as lackluster and mediocre as a lot of the superhero fatigue installments we've had recently. It's no better or worse than any of those, and it's probably worth a one-time watch for a bit of a brainless, fun couple of hours. So if you have seen it, guys, do drop a comment below, let me know your thoughts. Please also consider liking and subscribing to the channel, that's always a huge help for me. And in the meantime, we'll see you for the next vid, which won't be 2 months in the future.